falls back in, if the gravity is sufficient, it all falls back in and you get some kind of big crunch. Now, so whichever way you look at it, eventually all human endeavour will have been for nothing. And that is unendurably bleak. So, this was why I came up with the idea in Jerusalem that if this is a fourth dimensional universe, then the idea that time is passing is an illusion. This is a solid. Where has it got to go? As Einstein himself said, a couple of months before his own death, when he was consoling the widow of another physicist, he said, well, for a physicist like me, death isn't really a big deal, because I understand the persistent illusion of transience, which is a lovely phrase, and what it basically means is we don't have to worry about any of that stuff. We don't have to worry about the end of the world, the end of the species, the end of the universe, or anything. It will eventually come in one way or another, but this is a solid. We're here forever. These moments are here forever. The only appearance of time is that our consciousness is moving through this solid along the time axis. So changes and events, that's just an illusion, an optical, it's a perspective illusion of the third dimension. So,
it's a bit like a record player, isn't it?
Yeah, or a book. It's like when you get to the end of a book, it doesn't just burst into flames. All of the characters and the incidents of the book are still there. Like in Lost Girls, you know, all of those incidents, they are there in a solid form. When we read it again, and I hope you will, but our minds move through it panel by panel, or moment by moment, if you're talking about a human life, and it's sort of, it's all there, and it's not going anywhere. Now, some people find that the idea that, according to my theory, we have our lives over and over and over and over and over again, and it always feels like the first time, apart from those little moments of deja vu, you know. But some people find that a really frightening idea. Some people find it a really charming idea. You know, I suppose it depends how you're running your life, or how your life is going. But I suppose that the dogma that you could take from it, whether you're talking about an individual or a species, is that we should live every moment as if we were going to have to live it forever. I believe that I believe that eternity is right now. I believe that every moment is eternal, in a literal sense. So don't do anything that you can't live with forever. That's simple enough, you know. So yeah, that was my feelings with regard to that. I've forgotten the original question.
That's some very original answers.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
And in many ways, I mean, I think comics are the most fantastic symbol of that, not just books, but everything.
They are a very, very good symbol of that. That sort of, the panels, the moments in this sequence, and it's just our mind moving through these things.
Representing that. Okay.
Yeah,
how are we doing? Yeah, Nathan.
So I keep hogging the thing. Just something that came up in a couple of papers. Obviously, a lot of your work's quite, I don't know if you want to use the term politically motivated, or it's articulating political ideas, whether it's anarchy or whatever it is. How much do you want the audience to respond to it? Are we meant to be, do you want us to be an active audience who go, hey, okay, I've got that idea, I'll apply it to my life? Or
I don't want you to, I just want you to think about what I've said. Whether you agree with it or not, as an anarchist, is completely up to you. I'm certainly not, obviously, I'd like it if you did agree with it. But sort of, as long as the idea is being considered, then I think that I've done my job. If I raise that concept, however people respond to it is entirely their prerogative. But for me, it's just having the ideas out there, having raised the ideas.
Do you find that easier to do in your prose writing as opposed to the comic stuff? I mean, do you find certain mediums more that facilitate that?
It's horses for courses, really.
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain things that you could only do in comics. I mean, I couldn't have done Lost Girls as in anything other than the comics form. You know, it just wouldn't have been possible.
The performance version could be quite interesting.
Well, I mean, someone suggested making a musical of it. I mean, we could...
Maybe Damon Albarn and...
Yeah. I don't see a lot of them these days, but, you know. But, I mean, like, the thing is that it worked perfectly for that. Now, with Jerusalem, on the other hand, no, you couldn't do that as a comic. I mean, you can barely do it as a book. But it just depends upon what it is that you're trying to express. I mean, I work with a number of different media, and there are things that you can do in writing a song that you can't do in a movie or a comic or whatever, or vice versa. It's just a matter of, and also to some degree, the medium that you're using will shape the work. So it's just a matter of having the initial impulse and thinking, how would this work best? Sometimes it will work okay in a number of media, but not very often. You know, it's and as for how you choose which medium to employ, I don't really know. It just sort of comes to you. I mean, the idea with Lost Girls, when we'd originally been asked to do an 8-page erotic comic strip. And this was an idea that for ages I'd been thinking, I wonder if you could do a sort of a structured and sustained pornography in comics that would work for me, that would not disappoint me. And for ages I just couldn't think of how you could do this. And it wasn't until me and Melinda were both independently asked to do this 8-page thing for an anthology, and I'd been wanting to work with Melinda for quite a while, and we got together, and that only came out of a kind of an intellectual chemistry between us. We were sort of talking about what we thought might work. I came up with a half-baked idea about Peter Pan that I'd had, that you could reinterpret that as a sexual narrative. Melinda said she'd always enjoyed doing things about 3 characters.
That
like
was
in
the only really funny thing I'd ever written was done with 3 girls. So.
Yeah, and so she was saying that could we do it with 3 characters, and I thought, well, the 2 ideas kind of just crashed together unexpectedly, and I just thought, well, if Wendy from Peter Pan was one of the 3 girls, who would the other 2 be? And it's kind of a no-brainer, really. I mean, like, it's obviously it's going to be Alice and Wendy and sort of and Dorothy, rather. And so then the whole idea, the whole structure, everything to do with Lost Girls kind of erupted out of that idea, and that's the beautiful thing about ideas, that it surpassed anything that I could possibly have imagined. I didn't dream that we'd be able to do with Lost Girls what we eventually ended up doing with it.
And I do think that, you know, ideas float around in their lovely shapes, just waiting for somebody to suck them down. You know, and so you kind of have to wait for them, like waiting to see a fawn in the wilderness. You have to be very quiet and just think and be there in case it floats by.
And once we'd had the idea, I mean, I can remember us saying when we were wading through those 16 years or whatever of sort of trying to get the book finished,